Welcome to Maker Chats. My name is Oliver Berry and I'll be your host. The making community is growing rapidly and I want to spread the word. So every Thursday I'll be chatting with an interesting maker and innovator. Be sure to join us on YouTube, Facebook and Spotify. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, then join the Maker Chats Facebook group. I really look forward to bringing you interesting and innovative content from makers of all ages. If you'd like to get the show sent straight to your inbox, subscribe with the link in the description below. If you are a maker and you want to chat with us, don't hesitate. I'd love to hear about your project or your business and interview you. Contact us on the link in the description. Now let's get on with today's chat. Unfortunately, I couldn't be on this awesome chat this week, but I'll be back soon, so enjoy.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to Maker Chats. Today I'm speaking to Felix Holm, the founder of Maker Station, and Sinead Stassen, the founder of Open Design. Good day, Felix. Good day, Sinead.
Hello, Will. Thanks for having us.
Hi.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for being on the show. How are you guys coping with being locked down still? And it seems like we're going to be locked down for another while.
Well, in my space, I'm used to working from home, so I'm in my happy space.
Yeah, no, and I think we've been busier than we were before the lockdown. Also working from home most of the time, but doing a few trips into the makerspace every day.
Can you go to the makerspace as an essential service?
Yeah, we registered as an essential service with our relationship with with the Observatory Improvement District, where we work with them on like sanitation projects for the homeless with Africa Burn, and then also with the Red Cross Children's Hospital that we are working with on PPE projects and products.
Can I ask
So
you
we
guys,
registered as a supplier.
Okay. Can I ask you guys to give us a little bit of background on each of you, just a 2-minute background, so that we know, so our listeners can hear where you're from and what you're talking about?
So I'm co-founder of the Maker Station as a makerspace Woodstock with my brother Manus. We have been running the makerspace for about 6 years now. It's basically like a gym or club for people that want to make stuff. They can come and book and use equipment, and a big part of it is sort of the community that everybody taps into, and that's also what we're sort of leveraging at the moment with our efforts to help the hospitals and the community projects, is to actually leverage that community of makers.
So, Felix, do you have a technology or engineering background?
I've studied industrial design, product design, a couple of diplomas in that. And I've been a practicing product designer for about 20 years in a whole range of fields, development, product-related sort of industries. Yeah.
Awesome. So, Sinead, yourself?
Well, I come from an education and design background. I first studied education, where my major focus was on art and physical education. And straight after that, I went to study design at CPUT, textile design, in fact. And but right from the beginning of my career, I got involved in design education, and I used to teach design education for about 15 years. And it was an interesting journey at the time, because we're talking about the early 90s now, when a group of us decided, well, we need to make a bigger noise in terms of the value of design as a subject at school, because at the time only art was offered as a subject. So a small group of us decided to challenge the National Department of Education to get them to understand the importance of design as an independent subject, away from art. And that took us about 9 years to achieve, which was a great achievement at the end. We started putting together the first curriculum for design to be offered at school. We really thought that it's important to make a stand for design. It's, after all, a great subject to develop entrepreneurs and innovators for the future. And in 2006, if I remember correctly, the first curriculum was launched into South African schools. Of course, not all schools that were interested in offering it as a subject. And at the time, we had no idea that South Africa was the very first country to introduce design as a subject at school. So
Wow.
that was at the end quite a great achievement. And from there, we started developing the first textbooks for grade 11, for grade 10, 11, and 12, as well as the teacher manuals. But yeah, at the end of the day, you know, when I look back at those achievements, they were great, but I started getting more and more aware of the importance of creativity, of exposing all children and adults to creativity, to design, to innovation, and the underlying skills that those activities actually develop, like critical thinking, complex problem solving, empathy, etc. These are all skills that, of course, we greatly need today. And after that whole journey, started looking at what else can I get involved in. To actually add a greater value to society, because as soon as you start becoming more and more aware of the underlying skills, you start asking different kinds of questions, you know, like started asking questions to parents like, what qualities and skills do you want to develop in your own children? Or just looking at employers, you know, what kind of skills and qualities do you look for in people that you want to employ, that you know can really add value to your business or to your environment or to your community. So looking back at Open Design Afrika in 2013, a group of us, my co-founders then were Christo, Maritz and Sai, and we were very excited about the opportunity that came along to create a collaborative public platform where we can create a different kind of design or creative related platform in the form of a festival. And the whole point of that was to see how we can change the design narrative. What was quite interesting during my education career was, so one day somebody said to me, you don't know what you're talking about, design has no value to add to society, especially not in a developing country like South Africa. And I think that was kind of like a pivotal moment for me to say, but we need to find alternative ways to actually educate people about the importance of design and innovation and creativity, which brought along the importance of creating this festival platform. There's amazing stuff, of course, happening all over the world, you know, with regards to education and workshops and talks. But for us, it was really important to create something that's inclusive. I think even today now with the whole COVID crisis, we're becoming more and more aware of the scale of change that needs to happen, you know, the massive scale of change that needs to happen. And when you create a public platform like a festival, it just gives you a format to reach more people and to impact on more people and to educate more people. And in our case, about the value and the impact of creativity, not just in the creative industries, but also across various different sectors, like now we're talking about the healthcare sector. So yeah, so Open Design Afrika is like a social enterprise. It's a not-for-profit company. And we went out since the first year to change this design narrative. I think most people are aware that art is about self-expression, but very few people understand that creativity in general and design is about improving people's lives and adding to the quality of life, which of course then completely changed the narrative and makes it a necessity and not a luxury or a nice to have.
Wow, that's amazing. So, Felix, can you tell us a bit more about the Makers for Children's Hospital project that you guys got involved with?
Yes, so like I said earlier, we got our sort of license to operate, working with first working with OBS Improvement District and Africa Burns Outreach Project. They basically working on sanitization, or sort of hand sanitizers and hand wash stations. Then we sort of via one of our members, we heard that that the Red Cross Children's War Memorial Hospital is in need of some PPE gear, and because we're also in the maker community, nationally and across Africa and internationally. We've got connections with other makerspaces. We've been following what these communities have done everywhere, so we're sort of quite aware of the efforts that people have put into, like making masks and shields and all kinds of medical and personal protective gear. And then we sort of slowly started a conversation with the staff, the heads of department at the hospital. And we then decided that as a maker space and a community leader in the Western Cape, that we'll focus on actually just working with the hospital itself. Basically, they give us the information about the type of briefs, for instance, what the requirements are of any particular product that the maker community can make. The makerspace now sort of then sort of we act as like a liaison or filter, but you basically try and put those briefs out back to the community, and having sort of a clear instruction or clear requirement from the experts. We hope that we actually cut through a lot of the noise and also all the panic making and the misinformation. And there's a lot of good intentions out there, a lot of people making all kinds of amazing things, trying to contribute. But we felt that a lot of it is also sometimes a little bit misguided, and we'd rather actually get the instruction or the requirements or the specifications from the horse's mouth. So that's how we then set up this relationship with the hospital, where they basically consult us on. So we've got like a relationship, a consultation relationship, where they give us guidance on what typically they would need. We then also set up a relationship with the Children's Hospital Trust and a crowdfunding campaign with them to actually support the Red Cross Children's Hospital. So basically what we've done is we're running this campaign now. It's a two-pronged campaign, and then the funds raised through that will go into sort of product development with the advice from the hospital, and then also in supplying and donating equipment back to the hospital itself as they need it. And then we hope that we find in this whole exercise, this relationship, a model that we can then also offer other people to, so they can replicate it in other environments, other hospitals, other communities.
Well, that's
and
awesome.
then also, yeah, part of it is also that we make any of our systems or designs or processes open source, so that it can actually be replicated by others.
So if you say you're making this open source, do you actually publish the designs on a platform? What does it actually mean, and where can people find this open source knowledge?
So there is a lot of open source. So as an act of goodwill, almost everybody internationally in the maker community that are involved in this are publishing most of the products or the designs open source or under a Creative Commons license. It basically means that the products are not necessarily patented or restricted in terms of being reproduced by other people. Sometimes there's a restriction that products can't be replicated for commercial gain, but they can be reproduced or even improved or changed. The designs, which allows design to be sort of, or improvements or development of products to be crowdsourced in a way. So what we are doing, we've got a small website called zamakers.co.za, where we basically just publish whatever we as a community come up with around this project. So we publish how-to videos, we upload files for 3D printing or laser cutting or whatever the project is that we're building with them. We've got a few files and things up there now, and even processes that we figure out. If we come across an innovative idea that we could actually just apply to our project now, then we actually publish it as well. So yeah, it's a lot about sharing the information. Yeah.
So if you want to get hold of international information, I know software, for instance, has a big repository hub, like something like GitHub. Does the maker movement have something similar, or do people actually more or less run their own type of information sharing websites?
Yeah, it's there's almost as many maker spaces and maker groups as there are ways of doing things.
Okay.
And some sort of solutions are sort of a little bit easier to share on platforms like GitHub. Others might just be a simple file download or something like that for something that needs to be 3D printed. But there's a lot of spaces online where people share everything. Thingiverse, GitHub. There's a swathe of these spaces where people can actually share the content or the designs of files or instructions. YouTube, you name it. And there's the big problem that we almost have now is that there's so much out there, and it's so hard to actually filter through all the content and find out what is good and what is not, or what is even the most appropriate technology. It's also we've formed a group on Facebook, and we called it open source appropriate technology group, COVID group, because it might be the most appropriate tool or technology to solve a problem in one situation or one environment might be 3D printing, but in another environment or another location, that technology might actually be surpassed by another technology, like an industrial injection molding process or something. So it's about finding the right solutions, either from the crowd, from what's being done out there by other people. Sometimes it's about adapting or hacking or modifying existing equipment. Sometimes it's hospital equipment that can be hacked or modified. And sometimes it's about actually coming up with a brand new solution for the problem. But finding the most appropriate solution, the most appropriate technology, the most appropriate process of manufacturing, it's almost a bigger problem at the moment because there is so much information out there shared on a million of these platforms. That's also why we also try to have a much closer relationship as a community with a group of experts that's at the coalface actually dealing with a problem, and really know what their own requirements are, and hopefully if we work with them and find solutions out there and or come up with solutions that fits their needs, most of their needs are universal, and we can cut through a lot of the noise in that way as well.
Awesome. So Sinead, tell me, with the Children's Hospital, how does open design fit into the project?
It's a very interesting question. The makers community has always been very much part of our ecosystem. And for us, it's a great fit because, we set out with a design brief for ourselves to see how we can use our platform, which includes the greater ecosystem, to start developing a future-ready culture and a society of problem solvers and change agents. Now, just imagine we already had that culture today, with this whole crisis. So for us, that design brief is still very relevant. And the maker community is playing a huge role in this, and also connecting the ecosystem. The healthcare system, of course, is part of that ecosystem, and design and innovation for the healthcare system is part of it. So if you look at the bigger picture, how do we use this opportunity and our platform to stimulate people to design for change and to design for life and to design for well-being for our people? So this is for us a very relevant project to be involved in, and we are really looking forward to see how this is going to unfold. And our role that we're going to play is we're going to document, we're going to communicate, use our platform to as a knowledge sharing platform, And something that Felix and I have also discussed is the educational component to that. By sharing knowledge and making it open source, it also becomes an educational platform. And it is then to involve the greater community to have their say and to actually participate, and to see how we can change people's mindsets and get them to participate as active citizens.
Oh, that's awesome. So
Yeah, I think also what I want to say is that we trying to take a long view on this. The one long view is that we don't think this problem will go away when we start lifting lockdowns and stuff. This is a long-term problem, but it's also a long-term opportunity to actually, like Sinai is saying, to actually try and build on the networks and the community building and the problem solving and opportunities for education in the future, and off this platform, off this base that we're now developing out of like need in a moment of crisis. A lot of people are suddenly sort of working together in to the same cause, and it actually is an opportunity in the long term to build on problem solving for not just a medical crisis but education, development, job creation, everything else down the line. And that's a big part of why we're also looking to work with other organizations, and to have a long view on building these relationships, but also long view on problem solving in this way.
What's also quite interesting, Will, is the medical field itself. If you look at just in general, over how many numbers of years, how specifically for the medical field, tools and equipment have been developed mostly for first world countries, and how that impacts on developing and rural environments is quite dire in most of the cases. I'm going to use the fetal heart rate monitor, for instance, as an example. When you design medical tools and equipment and you do not consider, for instance, the fact that an environment does not have, for instance, electricity, or your choice of material that you use to build this tool or equipment out of is not selected to withstand rural environments, it's not robust enough. That makes that equipment or that tool not accessible to basically 90% of the world's population. So it's also bringing a greater awareness that when we do design something, in the case, for instance, like healthcare, where you maybe build an equipment or a tool that can save lives, that you need to be more inclusive in your thoughts in terms of the different types of environments you can be designing this for. There was, for instance, the fetal heart rate monitor that was designed in Cape Town, was designed specifically for different rural environments. And it basically just changes the way you design things, is to create a greater awareness of, to design for the 100% of the world's population and not just for a small percentage. And in that way, you make that tool equipment that can save lives so much more accessible. So there's really a great awareness creation as well, not just from a community point of view, but also in terms of maybe we need to start asking very serious questions when we design something. Are we being inclusive? Are we taking different environments and different cultural needs into consideration when we design that? And how can we design something that can actually be of value to more or to all than just to an exclusive few?
Well, that makes sense. To me, it sounds like, you can have all this blue sky thinking and plans and ideas and innovation, but you need collaboration with makers that are more practical, that can actually then also bring this down to a level where things can actually work. So that type of symbiotic relationship is exactly what makes collaboration worthwhile.
Exactly.
We are taking a short break to call on all makers. Maker Mania is coming to Cape Town later this year, and the call to makers is now open. Makers of all ages are welcome. Makermania is a 2-day public event that will take place in the Cape Town Science Centre. For more information, please go to makermania.co.za.
I wanted to ask the children's back to the Children's Hospital project and your crowdfunding initiative. I see this.
Yes.
You're trying to, if I read correctly, trying to raise R1 million, and it's done on the platform backabuddy.co.za. How do what exactly? What are you planning to use this money for? Is this all for PPE equipment? How do people get involved with this if they want to partake?
Well, we've got like I say, we've got the website where the zamakers.co.za as our sort of landing page. From there, we've got for makers of any shape, color, or interest. We've got a Discord a server. It's basically like a chat platform where people can discuss in different topics, and there's video and audio channels that people can communicate with. It's a great space to share and sort of also share cross-disciplinary information. So we use that to sort of herd the maker cats, to speak, keep them all in one space. There's also a few sister channels on there that deal with more specific topics like 3D printing. The 3D printing community has been huge and sort of led the way in South Africa in terms of making PPE equipment and getting doing the stopgap work to while the rest of the industry was sort of catching up. There's links to the Back a Buddy campaign. And then there's also, so we've got, like I was saying earlier, we've got a two-prong approach. Well, there's two funding campaigns. Both go directly to the Children's Hospital Trust. They administer all the funds. They also do due diligence on all the spend, and they also provide donors that require 18A tax certificates for tax claims or tax purposes, can directly deposit into their account and actually benefit in that way. And then to what the money will be used for. So we working with the hospital in the sort of consultative relationship. So part of that is not just what it is that they need and the specifications and so forth of the products, but also they administer the sort of the finances. So they determine, for instance, if we need to spend time and money on developing a product, there might be overhead costs in terms of buying materials and components and to build prototypes, for instance. And then from there on, if we then have to go into production, then we would, for instance, with something like face shields, we would put it out to the community, and that might be small factories or individual makers or people working from home or anybody in our basic maker supply chain community. And we'll find the most appropriate technology, like we said earlier, the most appropriate process, and then we'll commission that order of, say, 1,000 face shields. And we then negotiate with those suppliers or makers a fair rate, and we also work with them to make sure that there's no price gouging or any profiteering of this. But we also do understand that a lot of makers have already in the last 3 or 4 weeks spent a lot of their own time and money and resources producing products, everything from cloth face masks to 3D printed products to face shields, all kinds of other emergency products. And a lot of the community is running out of materials, running out of money. Their machines and equipment need maintenance. And those are realities. Part of our strategy is that we do raise funds that we actually can keep people in production.
So, this whole coronavirus have forced you to really, and everybody to rethink their business model. So, Felix, in terms of your own business model, do you have any new changes or anything new in mind?
Yes, it is a tough thing. As a makerspace, pretty much work like your average sports gym. We have a building with overheads, a lot of rent. People would book time and come and work in the space. Like you would go do your weights or your yoga class at the gym. And with the restrictions, that is obviously stopped. So uh, most of our space's revenue has been cut. We do have tenants. Obviously, they're not able to directly come and work on their own projects. We do involve them in this project um, with the ZA Makers project, and they work. Some of the members work with us under our license, under those conditions on of the license on these projects. But it is still one of those slight unknowns. Not too sure what the future will hold for us as a club. As such, community are using the building's equipment, and especially now, still prototyping at this stage. A lot of it is prototyping. But as a revenue generator, we are a little bit in a unsure space. That goes for spaces all over the world. I think we're sort of taking it day by day at the moment to figure out how we're gonna redefine ourselves as a community, and we might, have to seriously also look at whether it's still viable to actually have a physical space in the near future if we can afford it.
So now from your side, I think open design if I looked at your website, you've had many events, and that seems to be one of your biggest drivers of revenue. Have you had any rethinking of your business model and how to go forward? Maybe virtual events. What are your thoughts on any of these things?
Yeah, these are interesting times. And of course, we are forced to relook how we offer and what we offer. I think the what will stay the same because we truly believe in the value that we're adding and how we are doing things. But, when you talk about the event space, that's an interesting thing. And I think it's still very much an unsure space at the moment. Of course, I think the most events, live events, are now looking at online options, but yet there's also a way of doing that. So just in my own capacity, I started looking at how live events are approaching the online space, and there's some interesting suggestions that's coming forward. Most people kind of just go for the online webinar idea, but you still lose a lot of the kind of one-on-one or special experiences that is part of a live event. So the questions now that's quite interesting and challenging to look at is how do you use the online tools that's available to not lose that authentic connection that you have with people that's given through a live event. So that's a very interesting space that we're unfamiliar with and we're busy exploring. But open design has also never only been about the festival. And although we have, up until last year, have put quite a lot of emphasis on the festival platform itself, we've always, because of our network and the amazing expertise that we have within our community, I've always wanted to focus more on creating greater opportunities, like now with this campaign we're doing with the makers as well. An opportunity to get involved more throughout the year. Of course, the festival is an annual event, but how can we actually activate our community of change makers, of problem solvers to be part of projects throughout the year. So of course, now with this situation, it's giving us the opportunity to actually explore that in a bigger way. And there are a few opportunities that's already come our way that we're busy exploring. So, but unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information to share with you now, but we're also excited to see what's going to happen in the future and how the situation is going to drive change within our own organization.
I think like the cliche about, with any great disaster, there's great opportunity. We,
Mhm.
as makers and as a community, there's never been any one cause that's uh, uh, sort of driven a group of very different disciplines together to sort of basically heed a call that's so common.
Mm.
And I think in that there's a big opportunity as well. We've been toying with ideas for years about how to scale. What makes a makerspace, in my opinion, is there's the three big things is, the access to equipment and learning to use the equipment itself, access to workspace, and then access to community, access to a community of people that you can tap in for information, share with, to work with, to learn from. That community aspect is very big, and that's sort of almost, we've talked before quite a bit about how does one actually scale? How do you create thousands of makerspaces? But the other idea is that you maybe don't have thousands of makerspaces, but one big dispersed makerspace. Just a global community of people that share those resources and share that community. But maybe that would be also now through being forced to use all these online platforms. Maybe a big part of that would be sort of managed or through some sort of online platform. That might be the future of makerspaces. And in out of the nature of a makerspace, you need a certain sort of critical mass of users to make it financially viable from a business point of view. And most of Africa or the third world, you've got very few locations, physical spaces where you can actually get enough critical mass to make these spaces viable. And it's probably in exactly in these environments where the need for sharing resources, sharing tools, sharing knowledge, learning, sharing community is the most needed. So it's a bit of a catch-22, and it's very hard to make this tool of a maker community or maker space accessible to most people. Maybe this whole situation with that we're in now is actually sort of forcing us together, forcing us all to sort of think and work on one problem across 1,000 different disciplines as makers. And it might actually be the springboard for a new way of looking at the business of makers and maker spaces in the future. That's what I'm hoping for in a way, because that'll be a lot more scalable sort of solution, or much more a solution that'll reach much further than just a few physical buildings dotted across Africa, where people gather that have the means and the resources to gather there and share there. But
What
that's still to be seen, how we actually make this work.
What I'm also thinking, Sinay, is, especially on your side, is the opportunity in education. It seems to me that a lot of education is going to move online, and courses and learning lends itself to being packaged and taught maybe by video or in online classrooms. How are you guys looking at any of that type of stuff? I mean, if design is a school subject, certainly schools will be looking at how they're going to deliver, and universities how they're going to deliver this content in an online space.
Yeah, I think an educational platform online is, of course, a lot more doable than a live event. And that's definitely because education is one of our pillars. We call it, we've got 3 pillars called, we basically refer to it as our ODA iTech. So the first pillar is innovation technology, and then education, and then communities. So those 3 pillars basically form the core of open design, and how we use those 3 pillars with creativity that's connecting all of that to create a more prosperous future for all our people. And the education space is definitely the more obvious one to take online. We still need to decide how we're going to move forward with that, and what kind of role we're going to play in that. At the moment, we are looking at a few opportunities that's come our way to actually see where and how we want to position ourselves. When I looked at what's already available online in terms of education, I saw most platforms that were available during this time were mostly focusing on, your usual basic subjects, your math, science, and your languages and so on. But I have not seen anything generally available with regards to the design curriculum. So I'm hoping that the educators that are teaching that subject is, of course, creating their own content for online purposes. But yeah, we will see how we're going to move forward. There's so much opportunity, like Felix has also just pointed out, and that's what we are excited about. I think that's also the great thing about working with creative and innovative and entrepreneurial people, is the like-mindedness in terms of finding opportunities in a crisis is just incredible, and that kind of really keeps you going. It's amazing to be in the company of people that's always optimistic and finding a solution rather than looking at all the crises that we are surrounded with, So we excited about the future. But it is also quite an interesting space to sit in. You can be excited about the future, but there's so much uncertainty, yet we're still optimistic, and yeah, we'll see how we're going to move forward.
That's awesome. So what I would like to hear from both of you is your most important thing that you've learned from your journey.
What journey? The COVID journey, or in general the journey?
No, your journey in life, your journey of in business, in what you've been doing with open design and your business, or your maker journey.
I think in our case, what's really, really, really key is people. The importance of having authentic connections with people and really trying to understand people's needs, their aspirations, their dreams, their environments, and also bringing different parts of society together. I think there's a lot of amazing events and a lot of things happening. But a lot of the times that's not usually the question we ask to start creating or developing a platform from there, is how do we bring different parts of society together? I think it's so important not to exclude people, because everyone needs to feel valued, and everybody needs to feel that they also have value to add to a conversation. And that's really what we've been trying to do, and quite successfully. It's really amazing to see how people bloom, can I almost say, when you put them in a situation where you value them together with people that have an expertise in a specific field, or people from government, together with ordinary citizens, and make them feel valued. So that, to me, with regards to my own journey, I have found to be very successful. And one don't need to go and create a complicated system to make that happen. It's literally to start from the basic needs of human needs. We all need to feel connected. We all need to connect with other people. And I think we all need to feel that we have value to add to a conversation and not be excluded. So with regards to the Open Design Africa platform, I think in that sense, we've been, very successful in creating experiences where we appeal to a diverse audience, and then manage to bring that diverse audience into one space. Because only, like you've mentioned before, and Felix have also mentioned, is you get the magic and the greatest solutions when you bring people from different parts of society together with their own life experiences and their own thoughts and their own ideas, that you put into one pot. And only from there can we find that common goal that we can move together towards.
Awesome. Felix, your side?
Yeah, I think, from sort of the creative side of things, the one thing I've worked for many years in development and rural development, job creation and stuff as well, all over Southern Africa. And I think the one thing that you do learn is that South Africans are incredibly resilient and creative and innovative. We've got a streak for problem solving, and also an incredibly giving community of people that would spend a lot of energy and time on each other. And I think there is a lot of value in that sometimes gets obscured by the noise of the negative. And at the kernel of most people in our communities, there's a real interest in contributing to their environment and their community, and that's quite valuable. And there's a huge ability to innovate and problem solve and work with the hand that we've been dealt in all sectors of life and in all occasions, not just under this sort of lockdown crisis environment. But I think there's a lot of that's something that you do pick up quite quickly if you work with such a broad community of people with such diverse backgrounds and skills and interests and needs, that there's actually a lot of goodwill and a lot of capacity to innovate and actually make a plan to actually get through problems or get out the other side of stuff or improve their livelihoods. And that's a very optimistic sort of thing that you do get out of working with a community like this.
Guys, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate your time. We'll be leaving all the links to where people can make donations or get involved in the description. And thank you so much for spending the time. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for yours.
Thank you, Will, for having us. It was really a great experience.
Thank you for supporting our show. If you'd like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Also, for a small donation of 100 Rand, we will list links to your business on our website. Thanks again for supporting Maker Chats. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. Find the details and the links in the description. Cheers until next time.